Hey everyone, it's Josh. I just wanted to chime in quickly before this video starts to explain kind of what's going on here. Now this is a video by Breakshift. Some of you guys will know him either from the Discord channel or from Twitch itself. He streams a lot of high-level Vault of the Void content, a lot of I-30, I-50 runs, but in this particular instance it was a type of over-explained video where he goes through his thought process a lot more and explains things just on a regular impossible run, hoping to help some newer players learn the ropes. So I asked him, and he said it would be cool to upload it here, and I thought it would be great to put on the channel here, especially leading into 1.0. So this one was taken quite a few months ago, but you'll see that the ones coming out after this, if you guys enjoy it, then they'll be from the more recent builds as well. So looking forward to getting more content like this onto the channel, and if you enjoy it, make sure you let us know. All right, I'll pass it over to Breakshift. Cheers.
First thing we got to do is pick our character, and I think it probably would be best to just go with Bleed Hidden. He's kind of the default in that it's the first spec on the first character. He also has probably the simplest game plan to understand. In terms of his win condition, you just stack up lots of bleed and it deals lots of damage over time. That'll, I think, give me a better chance to focus on the more general elements of the run that'll apply to all characters, and therefore be more useful to anyone watching. So that's what we're gonna do. Here we get our card pack. If you've cleared 10 runs with a character and mastered each of their cards, then you have the option to reroll. So this is usually the first decision you make after you pick a character. We've got a couple options here. Since we are playing the bleed deck, Opportunist is going to do stuff, and we're more interested potentially in stuff that generates silent shivs or applies bleed, since each additional point of bleed is better than the last due to the way bleed damage stacks. If we were playing the Blade starter deck, I would probably roll the Opportunist, but since we're not, this card ends up actually being very strong. It's the fact that it's AoE is really relevant for early game fights. A Swift card that hits all enemies is pretty powerful, and there aren't actually very many of those. Blade Storm is not the most exciting way to apply bleed, but it does nicely pair with the Opportunist, in that this guarantees Opportunist will be hitting everyone. Blade Storm also is going to make our evades block for the maximum amount, so that's potentially relevant. It's also nice to consider that if we apply bleed to all the enemies in a fight, even if we're mostly focusing on dealing all of our damage to one because of the battle progress meter encouraging that, it's still good to have just a little bit of random bleed hanging out on the other enemies, because we can use them as targets for our clot cards and not really worry about taking damage off the main guy or not having the clot effect live. So I think I'll keep the Blade Storm. I think I'll keep the Opportunist. The Thinning Out as well, I think I want to keep. This card is good normally when I play on high Impossible Plus, because it lets me get the voids that start in my deck out. But even though we don't have any starting voids right now, this is a card that is good against the final boss of the run, potentially. There's two main things to consider when you fight the final boss, the Void. One, you're probably going to end up with some garbage cards in your deck from the little minions, and two, you need to be able to have really high scaling up damage, far beyond what you need from any other fight. So throughout the run, as we pick up cards and relics, we'll want to think about that, and even just right here, at the very, very start of the run, I'm already thinking about that, and the Thinning Out is a way that could potentially help me get some of the garbage out of my deck. Even if I don't use this throughout most of the run, it'll be nice to have it just in case I haven't found a better answer by the time we get to the Void. Snuff Out can serve a somewhat similar purpose. sifting cards out of the deck. Specifically, of course, if we sift a Void, which costs 3, we will gain a Silent Shiv when we do that, and we don't have to draw the Void anymore. Unfortunately, the other garbage cards that get added to your deck have no cost associated with them, so this is a bit of a less powerful option, and it sifts 1 rather than permanently expelling 2, but it does give us the Silent Shivs. Last of all, we have Blood for Blood, which is probably going to be the reroll here because the other ones all have something pretty decent going for them, as I mentioned. Meanwhile, Blood for Blood is an okay damage dealing card for the early game. 12 damage for 1 mana is not that bad. And if you're getting a double trigger, it's actually quite a lot of damage. But we don't really want to be taking damage, of course. We're going to try to play as much as we can to avoid that, in which case this card is going to fall off pretty quickly in terms of its usefulness. So let's roll that and see what we get. A second Blade Storm. Interesting. Alright, so now we have the second real big choice to make. What Mastery card do we pick? In general, I will say on Hidden, I tend to favor Juggle, Main Gauche, From Shadow, and Bleed It Out. These are probably my top 4, just in general. Not thinking about the cards that we got from our pack, what difficulty we're playing on, or anything like that. Bleed It Out I like for the upgrade, since you can purge it to apply Bleed 3 to all enemies. We have 2 Blade Storms in the deck that are currently filling a similar role, but the Bleed It Out has better potential as we move into the mid and late game, because even if you upgrade this, for example, Bleed 7, that's quite a bit, right? But you're paying 1 mana for this. Since you're purging the Bleed It Out to get that, you're gaining 1 mana, and it also has this additional effect of when we actually play it to trigger Bleed, and that can help out a lot to finish off elites and stuff. The downside, of course, being that this does require an upgrade. Juggle is a card that's good to have against the Void because of the draw and discard effect, but it's also just nice in general for boosting your draw consistency. Again, if I was playing on Impossible plus 50 like I usually do, I like this as a way to get rid of voids that I might draw. And there are a decent number of enemies that just give you status cards like Dazed and stuff. This is very good against that. But I think what we're going to be doing is leaning somewhat heavily on the Opportunist during the early game here, and that makes me want the Bleed It Out, so that way I don't have to worry about keeping the Blade Storms. We can clear out a lot of the early fights using Blade Storm and the Opportunist, and then by the time we're on floor 2, we can make more use of the Bleed It Out that we've had a chance to upgrade it, and we can cut the underwhelming Blade Storms. So that's going to be the plan here. Oh, and I didn't talk about Sustenance because it was on cooldown, but that's another one that's just generally very good to pick. It's a really efficient card, and it's good to put Void Stones on because it has Rebound. At this point, when you get to see the Vault Guardians and their blessings, you could try and make note of this, but it's probably not going to influence your decisions all that much throughout the run. The biggest thing to note, if you're not playing with multiple stacks of Praetorian Guard, if you can choose to skip any of the Vault Guardians, basically, just note if you have the spiders. These guys are a problem if you don't have specific answers or a very specific kind of deck. 1 second here. Okay, yeah, like I was saying, Vault Spiders, if you end up with, like, explosive bottles that you can brew when you fight them, or, say, in this case, since we're playing Hidden, if we end up with a deck that generates really large numbers of silent shivs or hidden blades, then we might be able to take on the spiders no problem. But if you end up with a deck that does not have something that is going to specifically handle them, you'll probably want to skip them. So as you're playing, you can look at if you see a chance to like grab extra potions or something, you might consider, oh, that could help me fight the spiders. That's about the extent that this screen normally influences me personally too. But keep in mind, of course, that you can always just hover over the map to check which Vault Guardians you're fighting and what blessings they have, if you ever decide that you might want to consider that. Anyway, here we are on floor 1 now. The first thing that you want to do in this case usually is just open the map rewards. Go ahead and just highlight anything that stands out as being a particularly powerful card or good for your build. So here I'm going to highlight Sidestep, because this is just an incredibly powerful block card. A second Bleed It Out could be interesting, but overall, nothing here is extremely impressive beyond the Sidestep for me. So I'll lower my standards a bit now and think about what else might be interesting. And I'm going to look at Bloody Hell for that. This could be good in the early fights, early elites in particular. I think this would help out a lot. And maybe we want the Ambush, depending on how much we end up focusing on balanced cards. Ambush is very good for decks that have lots of balanced cards, since you can rig it either by upgrade or just with a green stone, and then always start out with 2 combo, which you hold on to for most of the fight. Those are really the biggest things for me on this floor. If I didn't have a Bleed It Out, of course, this would be a lot more interesting too. But now that I've done that, I'll take a look at where they are on the map, and now I'll consider how I can connect these blue tiles while passing through everything else that matters. Almost always you want to fight both elites if possible, so I'll highlight those 2 nodes, and this looks totally doable. We could see this being a possible path. What jumps out now, of course, is that means that we're skipping the card pack here. And we'll note that it's impossible to actually fight the elite, get the card pack, and get the Sidestep as well. Since Sidestep was the card that I rated the highest when I was looking at the map rewards for stuff that I want right now, I'm inclined to say that it's okay to skip the card pack for the purposes of getting the elite and the Sidestep instead. If something else changes my mind in the earlier parts, I might reassess this as we get closer. But until then, I like this path here. It's fine to skip the Soul Collector too, of course, because we're not going to have that many souls at this point. You need about 20-ish souls to buy a rare relic, and that's normally the best thing to do with the Soul Collector. So I like to skip the Soul Collector on floor 1 pretty much all of the time, unless it just does not make any sense to do so with the rest of my pathing, and then always try to hit him on floor 2. He's pretty much the highest priority node on floor 2. Okay, so it's actually impossible to grab this node. We'd have to come from here. If we go up, the elite would fall off. So that means we're passing through the Spell Child. From this elite, we could go up this way, get the chest, get the upgrade, and from there, this starts to look like a pretty appealing path we have here. We're hitting almost every upgrade point on the map. We're missing the one in this chest and the one in this fight, which seems like a pretty good deal, all but 2 of the upgrade points on the floor. We're missing 1 potion only. Yeah, you can see what I'm doing here now that I've kind of mapped out the general path, is just thinking about what resources are on the floor that we're not picking up. And then we'll think about if something sticks out as, oh, wait a minute, that would actually be really good. Like, for example, if I was playing on a higher difficulty and I wasn't starting at full health, or I knew that I wasn't healing to full after the boss, maybe I would value potions more, because you can get health potions or potions that might deal damage or something to dodge one turn where you might take a big hit. But this seems like a very strong path. We're hitting a large number of tiles, which is generally good. You want to do kind of zigzaggy paths that just hit as many tiles as possible. We're hitting all the highest value tiles, both elites and all of the cards we decided were important. So at this point, I feel comfortable committing to this path. Next thing I'll do is pick up my starting bonus. So 4 random potions is an option that I usually just won't ever take unless I'm highly incentivized to grab potions. Like I said earlier, if I think I'll need the healing or something, or if I had max Praetorian Guard and I knew that I had to fight the Void Spiders, I might take potions here. Since that's not the case, we're just going to consider the other 2 options. These are both very powerful. This option at the top is good for if you really want particular colors of void stones. Just getting more stones total is going to increase the odds that you'll have more of the one you want. So like maybe if you're on Tempest, you want lots of purple stones, or maybe if you're playing on Enlightened, you want blue stones so that you can draw and discard more and control your chain. Hidden by default, I wouldn't say cares about having any one particular void stone color more so than others. He might like red more sometimes if you end up with like a lot of hidden blades. But we're playing a bleed deck, that's not particularly likely. We can also consider the upgrade points, right? You can plan very far ahead with your upgrade points in Vault of the Void because we know for the entire floor exactly how many upgrade points we're getting and almost exactly which cards we will have when we reach those points. In fact, since we're skipping on the card chest and the card pack, which is here, there's actually no unknown cards. We're not hitting any shops or anything like that. So we'll know exactly which cards we'll have everywhere. We can plan which upgrade points we use for what cards. Because the knee-jerk reaction might be, oh, well, I said that I really wanted to upgrade my Bleeded Out. So I could just get that taken care of right now. But instead we can think, well, are we going to need that upgrade point? The cards that I want to upgrade that I own right now are Opportunist and Bleeded Out. Those are the 2 that really stand out. The cards that I'm going to want to upgrade that we're picking up on the floor would be Sidestep and maybe Bloody Hell. So this upgrade point could be dedicated to Bloody Hell, this one to Bleed It Out, this one to Opportunist. And at that point we kind of have like a free upgrade point here. And then the Sidestep, unfortunately, isn't going to get upgraded until the next floor. So with that in mind, we kind of have more upgrade points than we need, I say with big air quotes. Obviously, more upgrade points is always good, but in this case, it comes with a trade-off. So because I can already upgrade everything that I really care about and have some extra, I'll take the Void Stone. And we got a Black Stone, which I would say is generally the most powerful, so I'm feeling pretty good about that decision already. We can enter the first fight. This will always be the same fight against these guys, and they're pretty easy. So usually you wouldn't even need to change the deck to fight these guys, but it's probably a good practice to do so anyway. We're going to take out an aggressive card here, the Draw Blood, to replace it with a different aggressive card, the Opportunist. It's usually a good idea to roughly maintain the balance of offensive and defensive cards that the starting deck gives you. As you get later in the run, that's going to change once your deck has more of an identity. But at the start, it's mostly just going to be about, being efficient with your damage and your block rather than enacting any particular kind of game plan. So the starting decks have a fairly good ratio of cards that do those 2 things. For Snuff It Out, we literally have no cards in the deck right now that would actually give us a Silent Shiv. If we did put one in, it would be the Bleed It Out, and we wouldn't want to be sifting that Bleed It Out. So we'll pass on the Snuff for now. The Bleed It Out is also not going to be that strong this early in the run, because targets aren't going to have that much bleed on them, since they either will be dead because they have low health pools, or we just won't have had much time to stack it up with our relatively low bleed applying cards right now. And as for the stones, we don't have to put them anywhere yet. The black stone, I'm already thinking, just like the upgrade points, you can plan these ahead, right? I'm already thinking I want to save the black stone potentially for an upgraded sidestep, since we'll be able to gain 2 energy and a lot of block off of that. Very powerful. And none of the other cards here make extremely good use of the black stone. So that's my plan for this currently. If anything changes, then I can adjust at that point in time, but that's not until way at the end of the floor here. With the redstone as well, we have not very much that cares about rage. Rage only benefits the damage of your attacks and afflictions. We only have draw blood and the 1 copy of opportunist to actually deal damage with our attacks. Everything else is just bleed. So we'll hold off on socketing this stone as well until we have better reason to do so. So in this fight, any 2 characters killed will fill up the combat progress bar. Usually I like to kill the Dark Acolyte first, but depending on what they're doing, you could kill the Throat Cutter first. Not much point to killing the Void Enchantress usually. She is the most passive, she doesn't attack very often. But this fight's usually free no matter what, so not too much to worry about. Here I think we're going to just use the For the Throat and the Draw Blood to clean this guy up, and the rest of the damage can go on the Acolyte. Now, we've got 8 threat coming up next turn, and we know that all of that is coming from the Throat Cutter. The evade we have in hand says it's going to block for 8, but this guy will be dead and therefore not bleeding. However, if we just draw any other cards which apply bleed, it'll block for full value, or instead, if we just draw any other block card, we'll be fine. So I'll hold the evade for that reason. It's a guaranteed full block. That kind of opens the door to the topic in general of when you should hold cards. If like a lot of people who are playing this game, I'm sure, like me, you came from Slay the Spire as your first deck-building video game, then, you know, in that game, the ability to retain cards from turn to turn is locked behind a boss relic, and it's a really good boss relic. So when you start playing Vault, and you realize you can just hold cards right from the get-go whenever you want, it might seem like a really powerful option. And it's definitely strong, but every time you hold a card, you could be losing some resources. Given the way the purge system works in this game, and the draw system, any card that you don't play, you can purge to gain 1 energy, and when you draw cards at the start of the turn, you draw until you have 5 cards in hand by default, unless that's modified by something. So if you can purge down to have 0 cards left in hand in a way which is energy efficient, right? Playing your cards and purging your cards such that you have 0 in hand and your energy is 3 out of 5 or less, then you're drawing a full 5 cards, whereas if you kept a card in hand, you didn't purge it or play it to gain benefit, and then you drew 1 less card next turn. So even though you're starting with the same number of cards in hand, you've actually lost some potential benefit that you could have had from purging it. It's also important to just draw through your deck more rapidly if there are particular cards which are more powerful than the rest of your cards. So cards which you've upgraded and put a stone into, your rare cards, buffs that you might want to get into play which you haven't been able to rig. In those cases, you'll want to purge pretty aggressively too. So usually it's very much encouraged that you always end your turn with 0 cards in hand. The exceptions being in fights where you're not really worried about winning, and it's more just about, can I do this without taking any damage at all, like this fight. Or if you just have a really big amount of damage coming next turn, and you're not convinced you can block it without holding a block card. Or on the reverse, if you're very close to killing an enemy and ending a fight, you can hold some damage for the same reason. Anyway, let's go ahead and progress this fight a bit more. We'll just dump all of our damage onto this guy here. He's very close to dead. Play both of our block cards here. 15 next turn. Each evade will block for 7. And we have our spell as well if we needed to apply weak to one of these guys. But all we need to do is draw 2 evades and 1 bleed inflicting card, or 3 evades. So again, I feel comfortable passing turn holding 1 evade. We'll use this to kill him. Apply the bleed to the throat cutter here. No damage next turn. I guess I can mention this as well, although this is a pretty small thing. The Voidstone bar up here fills up when you deal damage to enemies, and given the way that respawns work, any one individual encounter in this game might have variable amounts of enemies that spawn in it, right? Like I killed the guy in the middle and then had someone else spawn, or excuse me, I killed the throat cutter and then had another one spawn. If I had killed 2 enemies at once, then there wouldn't have been any respawns. Technically speaking, that means that it's actually optimal to win fights while causing a lot of respawns if you want to fill up the Voidstone bar. But doing this is liable to just make you take damage. Usually it's not worth considering, but in the very first fight, if you feel comfortable doing so, you can intentionally allow a respawn that you could have otherwise avoided, just for the purpose of getting a little bit of extra Voidstone bar progress. It matters most in the early game when you don't have a lot of stones already, and it takes very little damage to fill the bar. The difference between having a Voidstone or not having a Voidstone before your first elite could be pretty significant. So, a very small thing to consider there. Anyway, we've got our first upgrade point, and I think we just want to put it into the bleed it out, like I mentioned. This is going to be really good just for our opportunists and our opportunist and our evades. So that's what we'll do. No money to buy anything here. At this point, we will put the bleed it out in. And I'll probably take out 1 for the throat. We don't have much in terms of combo gain, just the starting lick the knives. So having a lot of cards that we spend our combo on isn't really necessary. Just 2 different ones with Opportunist and For the Throat will probably be fine. For this encounter, you usually just want to kill the Blightwort first and ignore the Gloom Shrooms until he's dead, because they're only worth 40%. You'd have to kill 3 Gloom Shrooms to stop respawning, whereas the Blightwort just instantly stops respawns when you kill him. Particularly for Bleed Hidden, and I guess you can do the same thing with She on Enlightened, there's a trick you can do. The Blightwort always kills the leftmost Gloom Shroom, and he does that on his turn. So if we set things up in such a way that he'll die from bleed after he takes his turn, he'll kill the leftmost Gloom Shroom when he takes his turn, do his attack or whatever, and then bleed to death, leaving us with just 1 Gloom Shroom left. Whereas if you kill the Blightwort normally, you have 2 Gloom Shrooms to deal with. So that can be pretty useful. So we're just going to dump all of our bleed on him, and he's basically already going to die in 2 turns. Oh yeah, I should probably mention this as well. You're going to see me click on my draw pile constantly. This is probably the single most important thing to do. If you don't do this yet and you want to improve your win rate or beat higher difficulties, click on your draw pile like all the time. You should probably be doing this at least once per turn, if not more. This is going to let me know. So right now, for example, I see 7 threat next turn. I have an evade in hand. Like we mentioned earlier, we don't want to keep cards in hand if we could play them efficiently. Now in this case, I'm already at 3 out of 5 energy, and we gain 2 at the start of the next turn. So purging this card won't actually give me any direct benefit. But if I had spent my energy in a different way, then looking at the draw pile, I could count how many block cards are there. How likely am I to draw enough block in order to fully deal with the 7 damage? and that would make my decision for me about whether or not I need to hold the evade. So in this case, it doesn't make sense to purge it. I'll hold the card, but always be thinking along those lines. Being able to estimate how much block damage or how likely you are to get to a specific individual card will be really helpful. Okay, it's pretty unfortunate that we ended up drawing no damage here. This guy's going to survive with 1 health, but we could use our spell instead to make him vulnerable, and that would be pretty convenient here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you're going to get to see that little trick I talked about where this Gloomshroom will die for free. We'll go ahead and play the evade, and all we're going to be left with is this guy. We'll have 4 more poison being applied here, plus the 2 we already have, and this guy will actually get his attack in. I don't think I'm going to need the Lick the Knife. And at this point, I mean, we just have so many block cards and excess energy, because we're doing really well at this fight. Kind of a good problem to have, but I guess I'll hold 2 evades just to be absolutely certain. This is a case where I feel like I can play safe. 1 Gloomshroom is not going to be much of a problem. And there we go. The next upgrade point is probably going to just go into the Opportunist. Although, another thing to consider in terms of the order in which you upgrade your cards is the elite fights which you have coming up. The very first elite fight of a run is often one of the harder fights that you have to do during the entire fight, the entire run. We can see here we've got 2 more regular fights and 1 more upgrade before we fight the elite. On floor 1 in particular, most elite fights just boil down to dealing with 1 single enemy, right? Because you're either fighting the Corpse Mound, which is 1 enemy, the Skeletal Mage, which is 1 enemy, or Bruce, who can spawn the fish, but the fish will go away if you kill Bruce. To that end, if I was really worried about my ability to handle 1 single target, I might want to upgrade Bloody Hell, because this is a really good way to dump damage on 1 enemy. Meanwhile, Opportunist is better in the regular fights, since most of those involve multiple enemies. Since I have another upgrade to go before the elite fight, I'll go ahead and upgrade the Opportunist now, and I'll upgrade the Bloody Hell probably in this fight. Light It Up might go into the deck for the time being, just because it's immediate damage, and sometimes that's useful in these early hallway fights to avoid a turn where you might take a bunch of damage otherwise. I don't mind putting 1 in instead of a Draw Blood, so I'll do that. I could also put the Snuff Out in, because these guys put the infection cards into your discard pile. So the Snuff It Out could be useful for that. We'll put that in too. Why not? Always nice to be starting out with these, with the Bleed It Out here. Making sure that the evades are gonna be big block cards for the next several turns. And this is an opportunity where I can use that sort of incidental bleed application to get some free combo going. There's a decent chance that if we play a full combo Opportunist, everyone's just gonna die. And that'd be a really nice turn for us, because normally it's very difficult to kill all 3 enemies at the same time. Each one accounts for 40, so if you don't kill all of them at once, you'll have to be dealing with at least 1 respawn. Normally in this fight, I just like to kill them 1 at a time as they spawn, since you do keep getting the cards added to your deck, but the actual like boosted health from their abilities and the boosted damage whenever you draw an infection resets when a new one spawns in. It spawns back with base stats. So normally it's fine just to kill them as they come, but I think we have a special opportunity here to actually get rid of all of them. So we'll go ahead and max out the combo, and with all of these block cards still in the deck, I feel comfortable fully purging here, which means that we can reapply bleed on this guy to make sure he's taking that extra damage from the Opportunist, ending our turn with no cards and 3 out of 5 energy, which is basically the optimal thing. If you could end every turn in this circumstance and feel comfortable about your draws, you'd be doing really good. And look at that. Just like we predicted, the Opportunist was a really easy win to that fight, and that's why we upgraded it. Makes the hallway fights that much easier. This is the upgrade we said we wanted for Bloody Hell to help with the Elite, so we'll go ahead and do that. And just in case I'm gonna forget, I'm gonna go ahead and take out the Snuff Out, and we'll put in the Bloody Hell, since Snuff Out was just for that one fight. And even though Bloody Hell isn't really particularly great in normal fights on floor 1, the fact that it is an upgraded card just makes it pretty efficient by now. You know, this is at base 1 mana for 7 bleed. Compares pretty well against For the Throat as an upgraded card now. This is an interesting option. Now, we know that we're going to visit a shrine over here, so we could take a Void knowing that we'll have a chance to purge it. The Light Bulb artifact is quite strong, but we do also need to note that the Void will be in our deck for both of the Elite fights, as well as 4 regular fights, which is a pretty long time. We don't have any draw or discard, but we do have the Snuff Out and the Thinning Out. Given that we have these answers, I feel, and just overall, given the high quality of our deck currently, I feel pretty comfortable taking the Light Bulb. So I will accept the curse. Usually the drain option is not great, I will say. Usually you're either going to take it or just skip. When you would take this is if you were going to like if for whatever reason we had to path through here, or if we were pathing through the Dark Idol, and we didn't think that we would have enough souls to get what we wanted, then you might take this. But the difference of 5 between these two options, it's usually not worth getting the Void in your deck, I would say. So if you already have one Void and you're going to purge at a shrine pretty soon, since purging is done 2 at a time, then it's kind of free, you could consider. But I'll just take the item here. And you know, it's occurred to me I should probably change the alternate artwork back to the ones that have the text, so you guys can read what it all says if you're not used to. You don't have it all memorized like I do. So, there we go. At this point we need to put the Snuff Out back in the deck, since it's perfect for getting rid of this Void. And since we have the Light Bulb and we're getting lighted ups every turn, don't really need the real copy of Lighted Up anymore. So that's an easy trade in and out there. We are fighting the Treasure Goblin, so at this point I could alter the deck to have only attack cards. We'll go ahead and do that, or at least to take out as many defensive cards as I can for attack cards, since he never attacks us. There we go. Usually you can kill this guy without needing to worry about doing this, but we might as well. Generally, you want to get the bleed down as early as possible, so even though this is a lot of damage, the bleed will of course end up being more damage over the course of the whole fight. And we can go ahead and hit him for 9 anyway. If you're at 0 mana and 0 overcharge, or rather, if playing the card puts you down to 0 with the lighted up in this case, right? Overcharge gives you 1 extra energy next turn, so it's basically like we didn't actually have to pay for the lighted up, because we get the energy back from the overcharge. If this was a real card that we could have purged, would have been different, but since this card isn't purgeable, there's no reason not to play it. And this basically ends the fight here. Nice and easy. You love to see this guy. Just free money. Okay, we'll go ahead and load our real deck. Yeah, if you didn't know, actually, these buttons are a little easy to miss. I guess I can mention that. You can save and load decks with 3 different slots. Usually, I would only bother doing that for specifically Treasure Goblin or Dolus, where you save your deck, alter it specifically to handle that fight, and then load it. I guess there are some other fights that might encourage you to do that, like the Dragon Mother and stuff, but usually you don't need to alter all that much about your deck from fight to fight. Just a little handy thing to know about. The backup is probably not going in the deck right now. This card basically has 2 uses. One is just to generate a bunch of lighted ups and overcharge. We don't need that because we have the light bulb. The other thing you can do with this card, and to that for that matter, anything that generates volatile cards in your hand, is if you have draw and discard, you use it to discard the volatile cards, and at that point you've sort of replaced the volatile cards with real cards that you just drew, and those cards can be purged. So the backup would be like giving you energy if you use it in that way. It generates you 3 cards, which then your draw and discard effects turn into purgeable cards. You purge that, you get energy. Something to consider, but we don't have the draw and discard to support that yet. All we have is this 1 blue stone. And speaking of, it might be time to socket some of our stones here. We have a lot of cards that we have not put any of our stones into yet, which would be decent with stones. I'm thinking about the Opportunist in particular right now because the upgraded cards are pretty likely to remain in our deck for the rest of the run since we've already invested in them. And the bleeded out we don't really want to play so much as we do want to purge it, so it's not going to get value from Void Stones. So the Opportunist and the Bloody Hell is where we might want to put them. But Bloody Hell is an X cost, which means we'll often be spending all or most of our mana for the turn on it, in which case we won't be able to take advantage of the Rage, since we won't have any cards left to play with no mana, or the draw and discard. So to that end, I think I will just put the red stone on the Opportunist. The way that multi-triggers work with a card like this and a red stone is that the first... Well, I guess you can see the Rage 25% has been added onto the bottom of the card. In this game, effects resolve in order from the top to the bottom of the card. So when it says Rage 25% at the bottom, that means that happens after the damage. But then when the combo that we've built up causes Opportunist to trigger again, it'll have that 25% Rage, and then on the second damage trigger it gains another 25% Rage to go on to the third trigger. So we will actually get a somewhat significant increase in damage when we play this card with a lot of combo by putting the red stone on it. With that, it's time for the first elite. Once you're pretty experienced in the game, you might be able to recognize the artifacts by their silhouette here, which I guess could influence what cards you take into the fight, but I don't think we need to make any changes here, no one way or another, so we'll just roll in. The options we have are... we don't have to think too much about them this time. Obviously, the Gilded Sheath is not very good when you have 0 buffs, and there's 0 buffs on the floor. So, pretty easy no. The card spikes would fit in line with us wanting to bleed all the enemies. But we don't really have the card draw, and we already have other things that let us apply lots of bleed. So because of that, the Light Clockwork is probably just going to be the default good choice here. Always drawing the bleed it out in the opening hand. Quite lucky, I would say. What's nice this time, too, is we also have the Snuff out to ensure that we don't see this void. He's not attacking next turn, so of course we don't need to keep the evades. We're going to spend the combo on bleed here, I think, rather than overcharge, because we're already going to have an excess of energy. So I said 3 out of 5 you want to keep in mind, right, as being, that's the efficient energy gain range. 2 out of 6 is also an efficient one, because we're going to gain 3 energy because of the overcharge next turn, and our max energy will reduce by 1, so we'll actually end up at 5 out of 5. And you can just increase each number by 1 based on how much overcharge you have, so 3 out of 7, and, you know, so on and so forth, right? So we're going to purge this, even though it's energy inefficient, just because we don't need to block. We want to draw more damage. The faster we can stack bleed up on him, the faster we can kill him, and the less chance we have of getting slapped for a bunch of damage. To that end, it could even be good just to use the spell here to make him vulnerable on a pretty early turn, just so that the bleed damage gets in there. But I want to wait until we have more combo to try and get a bit more use out of that. 1 turn of vulnerable isn't super valuable here when he's only taking 22 bleed. So here's the Bloody Hell that we upgraded just for this. I feel pretty comfortable dumping everything into him here. It's going to make the fight end pretty quickly, and we can apply weak 2. And even though we're still only getting 1 turn of vulnerable, it'll be right after we put a lot of bleed on him. So we'll do that. 16 next turn. Evades block for 7. So if we draw 2 more evades, we'll full block. And if we end up having to take a little bit of damage, it's not the end of the world. Again, here we'll play the Light It Up because it's strictly beneficial to do so. Well, actually, we did have 1 overcharge, or no, we had 1 combo, so it's even better than the last time when I was explaining that. When you have no overcharge, it's good. When we had the free combo there, since we get combo every turn, it actually generates us a lot of energy to play that Light It Up. And we did draw enough evades for a full block. At this point, fight's over. Unfortunately, we did waste the Light Clockwork there, but it'll tick back up, and you don't need to worry too much about manipulating these relics between fights. It's a dangerous game because you might take a lot of damage, and it's a little hard to tell exactly where you will want this to be triggering. A lot of times it's not actually super value to trigger this on early turns. So having it just be at a high number all the time isn't necessarily the right choice. Anyway, here we get to choose between an upgrade or a free relic. So this could be relevant if we just decided we didn't want to purge the void, but I don't feel like that makes any sense. The Sugar Rush is pretty nice for decks which have buffs or other cards they want to set up on turn 1, and that could end up being us with the Ambush. It's possible. We don't really have a great use for that right now. But the upgrade point, as we mentioned, we already kind of have more upgrades than we need, and this does still let us do some interesting things. It lets us do a really big Bloody Hell on turn 1, potentially, and then still have stuff to purge for energy. If we draw the Void on turn 1, we could play it to get rid of it for the rest of the fight. Meanwhile, the upgrade would just probably end up going on something random like the Slick the Knife, maybe. So I feel pretty okay taking the Sugar Rush. We had the option there to skip this fight, but it's generally good to take more fights if you can. Each fight gives you some Voidstone bar progress, you gain souls and essence, and you get a card, of course. Even if you don't think you're really going to use the card, the other stuff that you get makes it usually worthwhile. Obviously, if you're super low on health or something, then don't bother, but in this case, we totally will. So, these guys heal every time you target them with an attack. So the bleed will be nice because it'll keep damaging them without triggering their healing. But since we have to kill all three of them, just any one fills the combat progress, you don't need to strategize too much about who you hit or anything. I'm going to go ahead and get some overcharge going here. With 7 next turn, we just need to draw an evade, but we have a pretty large number of non-block cards and this void, so I will hold 1 evade. Couldn't purge it in an efficient way anyway. Okay, so we did draw the void. That's fine though. We have so much energy here. Wow. Annoyingly, that is not quite a kill, but it's okay. We could dedicate a draw blood in there as well. So if we do this for 6, we could purge, evade. Yeah, you know, we'll kill her with the light it up. This will work out pretty efficiently. We go Bloody Hell, play the evade for block, and now the light it up deals enough damage to get the kill. Or alternatively, we could just kill her. We waste less damage this way. This seems better. Oh, wait. I forgot she was going to heal for exactly enough to not die by 1. Alright, little mistake there, but we're probably fine. This fight isn't particularly threatening, and we still have quite a few blocking cards. There's the opportunist, right on time. So we didn't draw any block at all. Now we have to actually kill everybody. But opportunist means that's like a real possibility. We can get free combo here. I'm going to use each individual copy of Lick the Knife since they rebound. I can get 2 extra cards, which lets me purge both of these. Could be relevant. I don't think it was, but that's something to consider there. It's better to play each individual copy once rather than play one twice and purge the other one. Okay, upgrade. Yeah, we really are just kind of out of good targets for upgrades right now. Upgrading a Lick the Knife is decent. Could do Dawn Raid, just to have another option for immediate damage besides just the lighted ups. And if we do decide we want to do a physical damage turn, this is a pretty good way to do that, since we always have the combo finisher, courtesy of the light bulb. Gain 100% rage, play out your hidden blades, play out your lighted up. That seems okay. We could even put a redstone in it for truly enormous rage gain. I wish we had another Swift card to put this purple Voidstone into. I don't think the For the Throat is going to last all that long. But I feel strong enough that I don't think I have to use the stone right away. So I'm going to continue to hoard my stones. A thing to keep in mind with your stones as you near the end of a floor is that once you defeat the boss, you'll have a whole nother floor's worth of cards to see. If you socket your stone before you, like right before you kill the boss on floor 1, you might see a card on floor 2 that you'll really regret having not been able to put the stone on. Same thing if we were going to the card pack as well. We've got a good handful of fights until then, but I think we'll be able to beat them easily enough, so I won't bother. And I will go ahead and put in... I'll just take out the For the Throat now, actually, since the Dawn Raid is going to want us to have combo more often. One less thing that spends combo will benefit that. Always drawing the Bleed It Up early. Pretty crazy. It's like the 5th fight in a row or something. Oh, whoops. I forgot. We have Sugar Rush. We're at full energy already. So that was a bit of a waste there. Oh, well. In this fight, there's generally 2 ways about it. If you kill the Hellmongrel first, that's ideal, because he applies weak to the other guys. If you don't feel like you can kill him, then you probably want to go for the pup, because if you damage him, then he has a chance of doing the rebirth action, which will heal him back to full. So he's not attacking you in that turn. It's kind of like a free turn. And the Cinderhound you usually don't want to target first because he reflects damage back to you. Easier to take him out once you can feel safe about the amount of damage you need to block each turn. Here with the Bloody Hell, we're probably just going to do a simple 2-turn kill on the Hellmongrel. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to lick the knife first, since 28 over 2 turns, or excuse me, 31, because he has the 3 already, over 2 turns is still going to kill him. I didn't need to spend the extra energy on it. Might as well gain the combo instead. And in fact, I can go ahead and max out the combo even if I wanted to here. It is a decent amount of damage that's coming my way. I think it'd be nice to get some weaken on him. And if I'm going to do that, then I might as well max out combo, since now it's going to apply 3 stacks of vulnerable as well. If I play the Light It Up, it doesn't really help us in any way here, since killing one of these guys would just cause a respawn. So we'll just pass. I don't want to waste my combo and my Like Clockwork charge, even though it would give me overcharge. Okay, so we had pretty decent odds of drawing enough evades there. It worked out this time. We also have the Dawn Raid, so that's potentially a lot of damage. Keeping in mind, again, the Like Clockwork. If we play that with like a Hidden Blade, we will get back a Hidden Blade. But this is 16 total block. This guy reflects back 4. So it would put us up to 18. The numbers don't work out there. So we'll just pick you off. And I definitely wasn't thinking about the fact that I wasn't going to have the energy there. I got kind of distracted by myself talking about all the other stuff. But it's fine. I don't mind taking 6. Remember that if you're playing on this low of a difficulty, impossible, you're already going to heal to full at the end of a fight. And what's more, the only thing you actually lose is a small essence bonus. So since we're already going to take some damage at this point, might as well just... Actually, you know what? Yeah, we can just kill everyone there. Never mind. Okay. We got an exploding bottle. That's cool. Like I was talking about earlier with the spiders. This is really nice against them. When you brew it, deal 25 to all. The sneak attack is also a potentially interesting option for a handful of fights, including the spiders, since they have like 6-ish frenzy to start. So it's like 5, 6, or 7 they can start with, I think. One of those numbers they have randomly. The Spell Child is probably not gonna... probably not going to buy anything here. Yeah, so usually Spellchild spells are not going to have as much synergy with your deck as your starting spell, but there are a handful of standout neutral spells. Boiled Blood is actually a really good one for like Tempest and Daughter, I would say, because the Rage is often very useful, and the Burning's no big deal when you're already purging a lot in Daughter for corruption, stuff like that. But I like this spell mostly right now because we get vulnerable from it, and we have no other sources of vuln. It's already giving us 2 weaken, which is like almost as good as the cripple. Refine could potentially be good in that it would let us double dip on like our opportunist, or honestly, that's really it, the opportunist right now. They're gonna be, this one would scale up better. There would be cards that are gonna be like really powerful by the late game that we have, maybe like a rare or something that we pick up. But I'm comfortable just saving my money here and spending it either at the Well of Stars or saving it for a card shop or something we might run into. Okay, so this guy really encourages that you never take damage because of his ability. He gains Frenzy, so we might want to put in something that would help our defenses, but we don't really have anything that's going to help our defenses. Pretty much everything in here is just an aggressive card. And being aggressive can still solve the same problem, of course, by killing him faster. Sneak attack potentially being an option there. His default Frenzy is 4, so 9 times 4 is a pretty good deal. I'll slot one of the draw bloods out for that, and we'll give it a try. Wizard Hat, I don't think we'll make a ton of use of. We are having excess energy somewhat often, courtesy of the lighted ups. Splattered Saw Blades, generally pretty powerful if you're playing a bleed build, and same is true of the Watcher. Well, not for bleed builds, but it's just generally pretty powerful, is what I mean. Pretty flexible. You can control it without too much difficulty. But the Saw Blade, I think, is going to be what's best because we get the like AoE with the bleeded out. We get the benefit of multiplying it by X with Bloody Hell. And it just seems more likely that we go down the route of having lots of bleed effects, so we'll take that. Okay, really good opening hand here. Can get rid of the Void. These are only going to block for 7 ever because it's a single target fight. So probably want to just keep both of these for block purposes, making sure that we don't take damage and trigger his ability. Okay, yeah, we're good here. We can just play out all the blocks. And it's worth considering if we want to keep the Opportunist just to deal a lot of damage, but we'll need to also draw the combo gain first. And there's a decent chance we don't draw combo gain next turn. We're going to be drawing 5 out of... Well, if we keep it, of course, we'll be drawing 4 out of the 12 cards. And then we'll be really sad. So I'm going to purge it and do the lighted up play. It does eat the light clockwork charge, but I really want the O2 overcharge right now since we're at 0 energy. Here's our block. We don't want to play too many cards here because we are confused, but the sneak attack is just a pretty good amount of damage, especially if I wanted to use my spell here to get some vulnerable in, which seems like a reasonable option. I think we're going to go ahead and do that. He's attacking for a good bit, so the weak is good. He has a lot of bleed, and the sneak attack hits hard, so the vulnerable is good. And now the win is basically guaranteed. There we go. Finally, we'll get our sidestep, Although this card is significantly less good before it's upgraded. But that's fine. It's still a pretty alright card. Okay, well, we finally drew the Opportunist before we got the Bleeded out. So it's going to be a lot less good. Also, of course, since we don't have any combo beyond the free one we get at the start of the turn. Probably still worth playing it. In this fight, you almost always just want to go after the Leprechaun first. The red caps, you'd have to kill them both simultaneously, which isn't particularly easy to do. They're actually pretty healthy. They do buff up when something dies, of course. But if you can time it well, you just kill the Leprechaun on a turn when they're not both attacking you. Then you kill the other red cap before he attacks, and then you'll have one guy who's attacking with quite a bit of damage, but since there's only one dude at that point, you can probably handle it. I do think it's probably worth playing the Opportunist, but it might be better to spend the combo on Light It Up for Overcharge. Of course, in that case, we're not getting all that much benefit from the Rage. I think the Energy will still end up being more useful, though. And this is still, 24 damage for 1 mana. That's not bad. Plus, if we want to account for the 1 extra damage there off the draw blood. If I play this card, it'll trigger the Leprechaun's ability. It's only 2 bleed, so probably not worth it. It would also waste my Like Clockwork. Okay, we have excess block, so I'll just drop one of those. Looks like we're doing another combo to Light It Up again. Always have to spend 2 evades here. And we're just accepting the Clover at this point. No need to hold this for just 1 damage next turn. Alright, so this guy is evasive right now, which means that we'll need to go after the other red cap. 18 damage is definitely something we can handle. In this case, I need to think about if I want to discard the Light It Up, since it's not a purgeable card. But I think the double Lick the Knife is excessive here, so we'll just discard one of those instead. We're always going to purge this. We're always going to play 1 evade. Build up my combo here. And the Light It Up now will kill him. Which means we have quite a bit of damage coming our way next turn. But we've Dawn Raid, we have Sneak Attack. We're just going to plan to kill him. We have the spell as well, of course, for vulnerable. So this time we were assessing the damage we had coming up. And here we just can go Dawn Raid into Sneak Attack. Easy kill. We'll get rid of the Void here. Usually, you just want to get the stuff out of your deck if you have the choice. We're only purging 1 here, but it's still almost certainly better than a handful of souls and some essence. The only time I wouldn't do that is, again, since you're purging 2, if I was planning on picking up another Void at a later floor and then also being able to purge both of them. So I said I was thinking about putting the Blackstone in the sidestep, but since it's unupgraded and we are getting close to the next floor, we're going to wait. It's still potentially better than an evade, so I will swap out one of those. And I guess we can keep the Sneak Attack in for now. It's okay against Blightwort. We do still want to kill him with Bleed, though, so we can get the free Gloomshroom kill. Pretty good chunk of damage just to start there. None of these cards really do that much for us. I will keep the 1 evade, though, just in case we don't draw any other block. Alright, we can free block here if we wanted, or we could save this for next turn, since we're going to be having excess energy and quite a bit of damage potential to deal with next turn, so... This would be 18 plus 4 plus 2 from the bleed. Although if we did the order correct, we could get 2 triggers on the Silent Shiv. Yeah, let's go ahead and use the spell on him. Order it this way for maximum damage. He'll die from bleed, which means that we just have to deal with the 9 plus his attack, so yeah, we should be totally fine now. And we have mostly damage coming up. Shouldn't be very difficult to finish off the Gloom Shroom. Just the right amount of block. Alright, there we go. One more fight left before the boss of floor 1. We got a draw potion. This is a really good one. Probably my favorite potion to this day, even with all the new ones we've added. This is another kind of thing to think about in terms of how you're going to handle the Void specifically. You definitely want to have a really good brew potion for the Void, because that fight usually is going to last a little bit longer. Maybe, you know, 2 or 3 turns longer than the other fights in the game. The best kinds of potions to have will vary from deck to deck, but draw potion is almost always a good one to brew for the Void. So we'll keep that in mind, and we'll try to hang on to this if possible. I'm sure it is going to be possible. Last regular fight here is the Voidling. Don't feel the need to really change anything here, I guess. Ambush would be okay. I mean, yeah, we're probably fine one way or another here. Still not sold on this ambush for the time being. We'll see how good it looks after I check what cards we have coming in floor 2. Oh, I forgot. I should have taken the Snuff It out now that I don't have the Void in the deck anymore. Can still make some use of it here, though. We can dump the... I guess we could dump the Sneak Attack in this case. It's not all that great. We can apply a little bit of bleed here, which lets us rebound the Lick the Knife to max out our combo. And at this point, we could either deal a big chunk with Opportunist or just have a lot of Overcharge. I think I'm going to take the damage with Opportunist here, because we can still get some Overcharge, and that hits significantly harder. Okay, so this turn we can do Bloody Howl plus Bleed It Out, and that's probably enough to win, I think, right? Yeah, that's plenty. Very good. Nice and easy fight. Alright, before we take on the boss, I'm gonna refill my water real quick. Be right back. Okay, we're back. Underhanded Tactics here is somewhat worth noting in that it is a card which applies Vulnerable. And again, we are still just relying on the spell for that. But it's the numbers on it, right? 4 damage. That's not very much, and it eats your combo. We don't have that much combo gain, just the regular lick the knives, and spending it on an opportunist is way better than spending it on an underhanded tactics. I'd almost rather put it on spend combo on like a For the Throat too, I think, or the lighted ups we get from our light bulb. I suppose I'll put the ambush in for the moment. Alternatively, I could do a Blade Storm just to make sure that I can handle some of the totems. In this fight, usually the concern is if she starts out with Curse Ward or Power Ward. Those are usually the ones that are the biggest problem. This thing will really muck up your deck very quickly, and this one can buff her up a lot. When she hits pretty hard. So you'll have turns where it's like you're not taking any damage, and then all of a sudden she's hitting you for like 30 or something. The Flame Ward can also get out of control, particularly if you're playing Enlightened. Usually these two are the best ones to see. If she has both of these up, you just kind of ignore them. But it's still important that you have the option to snipe off the problematic totems. So making sure that they're bleeding so we could like opportunist them could be good. Also being able to get rid of the Banes could be nice. Snuff it out, thinning out. You know, it's an option, but hard to say. The timing of when you draw stuff is... Normally, if the Banes are going into the discard pile, you could just like hold the thinning out until you shuffle the deck and then play it. But since they're going into the deck, we'd have to hope that we draw the thinning out after she's added Banes to the deck, but before we draw those Banes. I don't think it makes sense. We'll leave the explosive potion here in the belt as like our emergency button. This is another source of vulnerable too, just in case. So we have the Power Ward. Might try to kill that depending on how rapidly we're able to deal damage here. We don't really want the Shield Ward to die, so why not clot away the damage? I think it's fine to leave the Power Ward up for now. I think that's what I've decided. We dealt quite a bit of damage and applied quite a bit of bleed on this turn, so I think we'll handle things quickly enough before she gets out of control with the Power Ward. We have lots of block, so I won't keep the evade. No Banes going into the deck. We're going to be overcharged for almost the whole fight, just off of that one play there. So that'll be really handy. And I'm really glad I didn't keep that evade. Look at this hand. I think it's reasonable to use the spell on her for this turn. Gets us quite a bit of extra damage from the bleed, and we'll get a bit more from the lighted up too. We're going to purge everything down. We just want to draw all the way back around to the bleeded out. Is the idea at this point. We do heal the full after the fight, of course, so we don't need to worry too much about actually blocking. And one copy of Evade blocks fully already. So here I'm thinking we just do a big bloody hell. In fact, we can just go as big as possible since there's no damage coming in next turn. And that'll be enough. Easy fight. Okay. The spells that you take here, I would say 90% of the time you should just take the Spirit Ward. It's a decent like panic button, an immediate 15 block. Technically, you can also heal yourself up over the course of several fights with this thing. Shield Ward is kind of the same thing. It doesn't have the healing potential. It blocks for slightly more, but you have to use it before you see your draws for the turn. Usually just worse than Spirit Ward, I would say. Curse Ward is essentially trash. It's just kind of a meme. You could take it and do something funny, but you usually just don't want this at all. Flame Ward is most notable just for the fact that it's a 2-turn cooldown, and there aren't a lot of spells that are that quick. So if you have something like this, the Spell Shield or the Stew or something, maybe you would want to take this. Power Ward is okay if you have like no other source of overcharge. This is probably the second best one, but we're just going to keep it simple and go with the Spirit Ward here, what I almost always do. Now we have the Well of Stars. We could afford some stuff here, but we don't really need upgrade points. Don't really need a potion. We already have an energy potion even. Drafting uncommons isn't such a bad idea, but we're about to see a whole nother floor worth of cards. We might go to a card shop. There might be a blood library. Who knows, right? So probably better not to spend my money now, since that's most of my money. Instead, I could just take a free booster pack, and I would feel pretty good about that. We have a bunch of stones that we could socket into random cards we get from here. And the deck could definitely use a bit more of a punch. Maybe some additional cards that trigger bleed. Something like a Sanguine Shell would be really cool. And, you know, we are getting a rare, so maybe we get In Cold Blood or something like that. That's what I'm going to take, and we'll choose to save our money. This is often the case, I would say, in the first Well of Stars, is you usually don't want to spend a whole bunch of money. If for some reason you just have, like, a ton of essence, maybe you have some artifacts that give you essence, or if you're just, like, desperately looking for a particular kind of Void Stone and you get one of the random Void Stone options down here, or something of that sort, you know, it can be correct, but usually going into the floor 2, you want to save some money, quite a bit of money. Never know when you might find a better option to spend it on. So there it is, the In Cold Blood I was talking about. That's a really good card. This is a great answer to the Void. Talking about needing to scale up your damage massively, this is a card that does that. Bleed, of course, over time, you know, just stacks up a bunch. And if you cycle through your deck twice, play an In Cold Blood with a lot of combo twice, that's going to be so much damage that we probably don't need to worry about being able to kill the Void at this point. It would just be about being able to survive. And something like the Blackstone Sidestep idea that I was talking about could help us with that. We already have one backup that we're not using, so I really don't think I need two. This is a very likely reroll. Time to Maim. We're not making much use of Rage, but the In Cold Blood is an attack. So it would benefit from the Rage, I guess. You know, and we do have a handful of attacking cards. These two cards, pretty underwhelming, but when you re-roll a card, it turns into a card of the same rarity. So I'm much more inclined to roll an uncommon than I am a common. So we'll roll the useless uncommon. That'll sting. Okay. This is a fine card. It might make its way into the deck. But for now, let's take a look at floor 2 here. Now, on floor 1, I always start by looking at the map rewards. On floor 2, it's more important to start by looking at a place where you can spend your souls. So in this case, these two. Your souls are going to be like the biggest way that you power yourself up for the end game. And you're almost always going to be saving them up until floor 2 here. So you really can't afford to miss either the Soul Collector or the Queen. Either one will do, but you have to go to one of them, right? You're guaranteed a Soul Collector. Queen you might get. Anyway, we're fine going to either one in most cases. The Queen, of course, always provides the Queen Stone, which double triggers a card. Just gives it trigger +1. And we don't have anything that really cares about that right? We did, of course, just get our In Cold Blood, and this is already a card that is benefiting from extra triggers, right? So adding one more trigger onto the stack is going to be less of a benefit than for a card which just does a bunch of stuff up front, right? Like putting Bloody Hell with a Queenstone could be a way to stack up a lot of bleed very quickly. But it seems more likely to me that the relics would be better. So I'm going to favor the Soul Collector here. And we can see that the pathing after the fact would be very pleasant here. Getting all of these nodes, even hitting the Lost and Found, and only skipping this probably fairly useless shrine. We're going to try and connect that to the other elite as well here. And this gives us the chance that we could actually visit the Queen here and still complete this path. So we could potentially just look inside, see what she has if something tempts us. Taking this path would mean now that we're either choosing to go from the bottom, in which case we get this chest, or we're going from the top, in which case we get the upgrade in the potion. The chest will always have an upgrade point in itself as well, so equal amount of upgrades. The difference is, do you want a lacerations and a potion, or do you want a choice of 3 random cards, a wound, and a building steam? And if we go up, we also would get Salt on the Wound. Salt on the Wound could be pretty good. Potentially. With the Splattered Sawblade, this is quite a lot of bleed. Potentially getting stuff back even with, like, Clockwork. And even if we're not getting back a Shiv with, like, Clockwork, cards which generate 0-cost attacks are good for these kind of attack-counting relics, because we can play the Shivs to tick it up to the right number, and then play the card that we want to actually get back. So I am actually pretty interested in this Salt on the Wound, and this path is looking pretty nice to me. Extra potions are always appreciated. So this is how I laid out my path this time. We started with Soul Collector and Queen, connected the elites, and then just kind of freestyled the rest of the path. Now I can look at the tiles I'm missing and think about if I really want any of these. So second Salt in the Wound, I think 1 is probably fine. Don't really care that much that I'm missing this. Building Steam, not necessary. We aren't really doing a lot of buff things. Although we do remember that there's a Gilded Sheath in the Lost and Found. So if there are a ton of other buffs over here, like, that could be something, but I'm not going to go out of my way for it. Wound as an extra source of vulnerable, potentially appreciated, but we do still have the underhanded tactics if we're that desperate for more vulnerable. Riposte, I don't care. Thief's Code is actually very good. Thief's Code is really good with the Light It Up, because you can always discard the volatile Light It Up, in which case you're basically getting +1 draw per turn, and we are going to get a green stone, so we could grab that and rig it, which would be really cool. That would require us to be coming from, like, down here. Yeah, it turns out it's not actually possible to get the Elite, the Soul Collector, and the Thief's Code here. Because to get from this Elite and then be able to go up means that we have to go from this node to this Elite, which drops this node. Then we have to go here and then up, and going from here up would drop the Soul Collector. So I actually would really like the Thief's Code, and it comes with an upgrade and a potion, but all of that is probably not worth getting both of these nodes together. So we're going to say goodbye to the Thief's Code, and it doesn't look like we're missing anything else, really. Now that I've basically locked in the path, we're going to think about the Void Stones we have, in particular the black one, and ask ourselves if it belongs on any of the cards that we'll be picking up here, instead of just doing what I have defaulted to right now, which is the sidestep, once we get that upgraded, of course. So Plan B, not really a good Blackstone card. Rinse and Repeat, debatable, probably not. Smoke Bomb, That is a very interesting one. That could be a Blackstone target, potentially. Of course, we might prefer just to rig it. We do have the Sugar Rush giving us full energy on turn 1. So if we got, like, the keys that let us grab a card from deck at the start of each fight from one of these elites, we could do Blackstone and the Smoke Bomb and always play it twice on turn 1. That'd be pretty crazy. Something to consider. So that's a strong enough consideration that I'm willing to try and wait until I've fought both of these elites before I dedicate the Blackstone to anything. But the other stones, I feel pretty fine to say that I could just put the other stones into some cards right now. So we're definitely going to be playing the In Cold Blood. I think we'll take out Sneak Attack for now. And I guess we'll play Time to Maim. We're gonna meet that if you have no rage condition almost all the time. In which case, 1 mana block 6 is less good than the evade, but we are getting the rage, which works with Ambush and Dawn Raid, and In Cold Blood, and Opportunist. Last consideration, I think, here is, do I want to put in That'll Sting? This would be another one that gets really particular benefit from Rage, since we get extra damage, which then turns into extra bleed. Don't think it's really worth it, though. So we're just going to pass on that. Tough call, then, where to put the rest of these stones. Quite tough, actually. I guess we could do red with the Dawn Raid. That seems fine. I kind of mentioned that I could do, like, Queenstone Bloody Hell, but I'm not sure that's really worth it. I feel like I'd rather spend my souls at the Soul Collector. And I'm definitely not going to be able to afford both. Because we're only doing two fights before we get there, and then 2 more fights before we get to the Soul Collector. I don't think we're going to be getting enough to get both. In which case, I don't mind putting something else on the Bloody Hell, probably the Purple Stone. The Purple Stone is not that important anyway, because we can always deal with Overcharge just by using the Light Bulb. The Yellowstone... Yellowstone... I don't know where the Yellowstone's gonna go. I guess I'll save until I see the Merchant. Same with the blue. I could probably socket those right now and it would be fine. But we're not going to. Okay, so starting out with the Ambush here is very nice. The Light Clockwork is ready. We're going to double dip on a Draw Blood. For this fight, obviously you have to attack the Void Effigy for the first couple of turns. Or the first couple of attacks, rather, since he has that Scapegoat ability. Now we'd be free to attack the Robe Cultist if we want, but you have to kill both of them at the same time to stop respawns. I have a decent amount of health. It's usually just better, I think, to focus on the Void Effigy itself. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to get another card back. Really good first turn there. Lots of damage. This guy gives us Hex and Haunted. We need both evades to block, so we'll just go ahead and get rid of the light it up here to the the Hex effect. We'll play out our block. And the Fear 2 he's applying is a bit of a nuisance, but probably not worth dedicating damage to him for. We'd rather just soften these guys up to kill them later. The Cold Blood just kind of missed its chance here. Although, to be honest, I don't think there's a great way to get around the Scapegoat on this turn either. Running through the different options in my head here. The best way, of course, would be to do like Draw Blood, Silent Shiv on him, but at that point, we'd have to like purge Donray in order to do In Cold Blood, which is not very much damage. It's probably better just to purge everything and draw more cards. Get some block. We're going to be gaining 3 next turn, so it technically doesn't matter if we purge this or hold this. I'm going to purge it. We'll try and get the Opportunist. It'll deal a lot. Same thing with Bloody Hell. We're approaching the 2-hour mark here. Normally this is when I'd be finishing a run. Hopefully that means that I've actually been dedicating a good amount of time to explaining what I'm doing here. So for 15, this is going to block 6 of that, meaning we need only 9 more, which is annoyingly 2 evades, but that's okay. We can do it like this. Spend some combo here. Not very much damage coming, and we have 2 very good block cards, which are guaranteed to draw. So, with this guy being at 8, we only need to block with 6 for this guy. Or we could just purge this and fully block with Sidestep. So, we'll do that. No Rage off the Opportunist. Doesn't really matter. Okay. So we have the Salt in the Wound now. That's definitely going to be a good one to include. As for what we take out, we are a little bit light on attacks. I could probably take out 1 evade. I'll do that. And this might well be where the Bluestone ends up. But we'll, like I said, we'll go to the shop first and make up our mind there. In this fight, each one counts for 60%, but when you kill one, the other 2 spend their next action increasing their frenzy and doing nothing else. So it's fine usually to just kill one and then pick off all the others while they kind of waste their turns buffing themselves, since they won't probably get a chance to actually attack you. So we're just going to focus down one that's doing an attack intent here. We're going to double dip on the Draw Blood with our Like Clockwork. And now we're going to be able to use the Salt in the Wound. Just really stacking up the bleed. And she's already going to die to bleed next turn, so I guess we'll go ahead and hit this one, why not? 19 is like a reasonable amount of damage. I kind of want to use my spell. I think I will. We'll go ahead and use it on you, because it's 2 turns of weak. Actually, no, we'll use it on you. We'll use it on you. So I could have used that at the start of the turn to get vulnerable damage, but it doesn't actually matter, of course, because she's already dying to bleed this turn. We don't want to waste any more damage on her. We might end up doing a sync kill here, I suppose. Yeah, this actually seems pretty reasonable. pretty efficient blocking there. This is a lot of total damage, so we'll just go for it. Not what we originally planned, but it's gonna work out. Just one left now. Okay, so we don't actually have enough block here, no matter what. Might be taking a smidgen then. I don't think we ever kill her. Oh no, that is enough damage. Okay. Well, there we go. No reason not to try at that point. I keep forgetting just how strong the volatile lighted ups are these days, man. Like, ever since we buffed them, it's crazy how much better they are. In my brain, I'm like, I know they're good, but they continue to impress with how good they really are. The In Cold Blood is a decent upgrade. The Salt in the Wound is a pretty decent upgrade. But we're going to do Sidestep first. Gusher's a pretty strong one. The free upgrade on it as well if we spend money. That's very appealing. Yeah, I think taking out one draw blood for a Gusher seems very strong. So I'll do that, and I wouldn't mind having a Tower Shield too. As a semi-decent panic button, and since you can get the upgraded one, that Purge Delay Block 5 is very strong. So I'll buy that as well. Neither of these are actually very good stone targets because they both expel. I think I'm actually going to cut a Lick the Knife at this stage. Because the In Cold Blood spends combo, but we don't really want to use that usually except for when it's going to end fights. And the Opportunist is our only other combo spender. Fine to have two sources of combo and two combo spenders, I feel. Lacerations is going to be too slow for what we're doing. We're going to be killing people really quickly with In Cold Blood or Opportunist, so going to say no to that. Excuse me. Okay, yeah, we'll poke our head in here before we slot those stones. So you're always offered the Queen, which is triggered +1. There's two different kings for each character. We got the Balanced, which is pretty wild. You can do really crazy stuff with Balanced. I've gone infinite with that before. The best target for us, of course, would be In Cold Blood. In which case, we'd only have one combo spender, and then we could just go all in, basically, on the balanced cards. Not really worry about playing combo. In fact, we could, at that point, maybe even just cut the Opportunist and the Lick the Knife, rig the ambush. It's definitely a consideration. This would cost 12 souls, and we want to have, like, usually it's less than 20, but it can be, like, up to 20, I'm pretty sure, for a rare relic at the Soul Collector. So 31 minus 12 would leave us at 19, which is a totally fine number since we have 2 more fights to go. So I'll go ahead and take the king. Like the other guys here, you know, we could buy some of the cheap ones. Ghost Inert twice, Rebound. These guys are, I mean, they're interesting, but I kind of already made up my mind that I want a rare relic, and we can't really afford to spend on another thing. And Balanced on the In Cold Blood is going to be a pretty significant boost, so these just aren't really very important to consider right now. Which makes the plan B not very good if this is the path we end up going down. Balanced In Cold Blood. Blackstone on the sidestep. Well, I did say I wanted to at least fight the elites first, so We'll hold off on the Blackstone still. Salt in the Wound then can have blue in case we want to discard one of the silent shivs we generate. And as for the Yellowstone, somehow we don't really have a great target for it. Could just put it on a random evade. That would be okay. I can't think of much better to do with it than that, really. Doesn't make sense on any of these cards that are coming up. Lick the Knife has Rebound, of course, but we're probably just going to cut Lick the Knife at this stage. For the time being, I'm going to leave it in until the ambush is rigged. So I guess it goes on a random evade, because there's still a pretty good chance that the sidestep gets the Blackstone. Could put it on Time to Maim instead. I'll just put it on an evade. Okay, so now we're fighting the Taxidermist. With this guy, you just want to bring him down as quickly as you can so that there's not a bunch of Banes in your deck, and then pick the Unholy Creations off one at a time. Their health is so much lower than him, but each one of them is only 20% of the progress bar, so if you spend forever killing these dudes, you're going to kill a whole bunch of them, and each time they die, he gets stronger by a lot. So if you have like one bad luck turn or something, if you try to just kill off the creations, he can smack you super hard. Better to play it safe usually and just go after him. Probably not gonna happen, Dawn Raid. Keep in mind, of course, you don't want to keep cards in your hand during this fight because they boost their frenzy based on that. So it's more important than usual that you plan ahead in terms of how much block you're going to have. You can see here that we've got a bunch of good block cards, so we probably don't need to hold either of these. But we do probably want to have a good chunk of energy, so we'll purge for that reason as well. Rather than, not just because, you know, we can't hold cards, but the more energy we have, the more flexible we'll be in terms of how we can play out what we draw. Alright, big bloody hell here. Both of them are attacking, so I don't want to go too all in on this. We've got the Tower Shield coming up, but there's about a 50% chance that we don't get it. So we'll play it for 5 instead of 6, I guess, and purge everything down. So we'll be ending on 3 out of 7 here. Notably, this volatile card, if we keep it in our hand, it is boosting them. So, and unfortunately, it's going to even come back with the Light Clockwork. Kind of unfortunate. We really don't want that to be happening right now. I guess we could make him vulnerable even with the spell and then like double dip the lighted ups. And how much damage would that be? It's 18, so it'd be hitting for 27 twice, which is 54 plus 65 is 119, so not enough to kill him. In which case, I guess we'll, it's probably still right just to hit him. Now we're only taking 18 this turn, and we can weaken one of them if we want, but these guys are a lot of block. This one with the Yellowstone, right? Everyone's bleeding. I guess we'll play it safe. There's little reason not to. I missed out on vulnerable, but he only has 3 bleed there. Not really a significant loss. We're going to be overkilling him by a lot more than that. And he was healing anyway, right? Okay, cool. So we have our Tower Shield. The evade is not quite enough. So we'll just use the Gusher, I guess. We actually have to order things in an interesting way here. If we want to play these 3 cards, we need 6 energy, which means purging both of these. And then I think the ideal order is going to be Ambush first, because we gain 2 for the opener, and then I guess it doesn't actually matter. It's identical. Interesting how that worked out. So he's going to die to bleed. He's buffing them. We don't care that much about it. We'll just go after the creations. We just want to kill them quickly after the main dude dies. And this one's basically already dead. So we can focus on the other one now because bleed will finish him off on the next turn. So yeah, no threat on the stack here means we don't need to be worried. We finally drew Cold Blood. Yeah, no matter what we drew there, that was pretty much a guaranteed win. Upgrade, probably just the Salt in the Wound. Make it more efficient. Or the Ambush, actually, I was talking about, right? Because it's going to be a little while before we get this green stone, and we might prefer to put the green stone on the Smoke Bomb. So I will go ahead and upgrade the Ambush. In which case, Plan B becomes not very good, and neither does Lick the Knife. So we cut Lick the Knife, and we have a lot of options for things we could put in here. A lot of things that are, like, pretty decent. Especially if we also were to take out the Opportunist. I might just leave it in for the time being anyway, even though we don't really want to spend combo on it, because it could still close out fights, and it's okay to have some cards that are not, like, always useful in your deck, because you can't, you're always going to be purging 1 card per turn or more, probably. It's pretty infrequent that you have a turn where you purge nothing, so that means it's not that bad if you have a situational card or 2 in the deck. Not usually what you want to do, but given that we've already upgraded this and put a stone in it, it's a pretty good card. So I'm kind of willing to leave it be. Suppose we could put in That'll Sting. Why not? Make some use of the Rage. And we have some pretty interesting choices here. So we've got the Cultist Ward, which is obviously good for buffs. We don't have any buffs, of course, but we do intend to pick one up. That being said, with just 1 buff, especially a buff that we're semi-likely to rig, is having 10 delay block on turn 1 all that good, especially when we're probably having more energy than would normally be the case courtesy of Sugar Rush? I don't really think so. So this one's probably going to be a no. Performance enhancers are generally very strong. The more instances of block you have, of course, the better, since you can get more value out of it. We have 1 really massive block card, the Tower Shield. But even then, if we're purging it, it's pretty good value with the delay block 5. It's great with this Yellowstone Evade. It's good with the Sidestep, since Sidestep does block twice. But otherwise, nothing that really screams out about performance enhancers. They're just always quite good. But lastly here, the Drinking Alcohol. This is one of the strongest elite artifacts in the game. I would say 2 cards per turn extra, but -2 energy. Obviously, you can purge those 2 extra cards you draw to regain the energy, at which point you're kind of breaking even, but what's important about it is that it's boosting your draw consistency a lot. When you're drawing 7 cards deeper each turn, that means that you're much more likely to get to whatever it is that you need, be it your buff card, the block you need to avoid the massive amount of damage coming your way, or the damage you need to close out a fight. Given that nothing is strongly pushing us towards performance enhancers, I think it's probably better to just draw through the deck more quickly. That way we're able to play Cold Blood more often, we're able to, get our purge effects more often. and yeah, that's all I need to make my decision. Definitely not going to play the Opportunist here. Go ahead and Gusher for max value. I wish the spell was ready here. This would be a very good turn to make him vulnerable. It is also unfortunate to note that the lighted ups are mostly useless now, since we're doing the balanced spam plan, but these were very, very good for us in the early game. And the Void didn't end up holding us back almost at all, so I don't regret picking this up at all, even if we're not going to make much use of this. Yeah, this, I guess the tile already fell off. The Thief's Code sure would have been strong, but I still feel confident that this is the better way to have pathed. We can see that there's not actually all that much block left, and he's attacking for quite a bit, 22. Kind of feel like just holding all of these, honestly. Even though this guy has his ability, it's usually best to just rush him down as quickly as possible and end the fight ASAP. If you're able to like get him to like 23 or something, and then you have like a 4 damage card in hand, like your draw blood, it's like, sure, at that point you could try to play around the ability and not trigger him, but he has this intent here, pummel. This always does 30, no matter what. So even if you're, dancing around triggering his hit me again thing, he's still going to have this turn where he just clobbers you for 30. Better just to try and kill him ASAP. Oh, also, of course, the drinking alcohol, very good for people that add stuff like Dazed into your deck. And like in the Void, when we're getting those garbage cards, really good for that too. Just a super strong relic, honestly. Turning energy per turn into card draw, it's hard to overstate how powerful that really is. We'll play one of these, one sidestep, one more. Weakening him here, I'm pretty sure doesn't change the damage either, right? But I want to get him vulnerable. Yeah, see, it's still 30. This is just a flat, unalterable number. Weaken only affects his attack power, and this doesn't actually calculate anything based off attack power. But I want him to be vulnerable here because I want extra bleed off the That'll Sting, which we can play twice. And then I'll keep both of Aids again. We're getting 2 days, but we're drawing a bunch of cards. Try and draw. You know what, actually? Maybe it's better just to try and kill him. I feel like it might be. He's still going to be vulnerable. We're going to have Dawn Raid and Cold Blood potentially. Bleed it out. It's debatable here if I should actually just try to go for a kill. Knowing your clock in a fight is a pretty valuable skill to be able to learn in this game. Figuring out what are the odds that you can kill in a set number of turns. So in this case, next turn, I just have to think, what are the odds of killing him? But I could have started at the beginning of the fight, even trying to calculate how likely it was I could kill him in, say, 3 turns. But the spell was on cooldown, of course, so I wasn't thinking about that at the time. I couldn't get the vulnerable down early, and we dealt as much damage as possible. So I think in this case, it is probably better to play it safe. We're not going to go for the kill. If we don't draw explicitly Cold Blood, I just don't think it's happening. And we didn't draw the Cold Blood. We can Salt in the Wound here to get rid of a Dazed, turn it into a real card. So that's nice, but we'll be taking a little bit here, and that's fine. A little bit of damage isn't going to hurt us. We even have... Okay, we don't have a shrine, but we healed the full at the end of the floor, right? Not a big deal. And we would have gotten hit quite a bit harder if we had tried to go for the kill. So, in retrospect, we made the right decision, and we can think about that if we're in a similar spot in the next fight we do, or in any coming fights. Can remind ourselves. Okay, big node here, the Soul Collector. What do we got? Butcher's Blade. That's a pretty good one. Being able to double dip on a balanced in Cold Blood in particular sounds kind of insane. In fact, we can triple dip with the Light Clockwork. Otherwise, in fights where we're not getting the crazy high roll within Cold Blood, just getting to have multiple uses out of Shivs and Hidden Blades is still pretty decent. You can use it on... Well, you can't use it on Bleed It Out, but you can use Bleed It Out with the Light Clockwork. We can use it with That'll Sting. I think it's good enough here. It's really strong, and the highest high is so powerful that I feel like it's worth taking that as a surefire thing instead of rolling the dice and getting something like the Flask of Red Juice, which gives you Rage, right? That would be really not very good. So we'll take the sure thing. And we could put in Sneak Attack here against her. She's pretty annoying. But we'll try with what we have here. The Eldritch Blessing is very strong in a deck that generates lots of Shivs and Hidden Blades, which we kind of are now because, similar to what I was saying about the Light Clockwork, you play the stuff that's 0 cost to tick this thing up, and then right when it's ready to go, you play the thing that actually costs mana. Crystal Lake Hand Me Down, I think we have exactly one heavy card, right? Well, Bleed It Out is technically a heavy card, but we can only play this once ever, so this is not very useful. The Diadem is particularly good with the drinking alcohol, because we will basically always be starting the turn by purging a couple of cards. If we were particularly worried about dealing with like poison or burning or something, then I might be wanting to pick this up, but as is, I'm not concerned with debuffs that much. So we'll just take the Blessing. Maybe we buy the Diadem and the Lost and Found, if we have enough money. Not sure we will. Oh, actually, no, we're not playing with any instability modifiers. I'm used to tight pockets costs in my head. Okay. So Bloody Hell is really good against her here, since it doesn't trigger her ability. We want to use the Ambush. I guess we can just sidestep away the reflected damage from the Hidden Blades here. That's probably fine. Do a little bit of trickery here. We're going to be playing the Evade as well. So that's 16 block, which is the correct amount now. The Eldritch Blessing makes this free. Dump everything into the Bloody Hell. And that was a very good turn there. Fully blocked, we got a little bit of overcharge, we put a whole bunch of bleed on her. Okay, this is an attack, of course, but could still be worth playing. The Gusher isn't going to do all that much for us. That'll Sting is okay. Notable, the Haunted will prevent our In Cold Blood from being balanced, and that totally ruins the double In Cold Blood play with Butcher's Blade. So it is actually kind of important that we unhaunt ourselves, which makes me want to do Salt in the Wound, even though I'm discouraged from just playing out these Shivs. And honestly, it might still just be right to play them all anyway, because we can block. She reflects 4 each time, so that would be 12, which is just both evades, right? So I think we're actually going to go for that. We're not going to play That'll Sting. And we can get one more in there. Go up to 14. What did I just do? Okay, no, I went up to 16. I can't count sometimes. That's fine, it doesn't matter, we're all good. She's definitely dead as soon as we draw the In Cold Blood, which is almost guaranteed. We're drawing 7 cards out of the 8 in our deck. There it is, we just have to make sure we're not haunted. So I guess Dawn Raid's the only way to do that doesn't spend combo, so sure, Dawn Raid. Didn't even need to play it twice. This is a fight where we're really going to appreciate the drinking alcohol. Yeah, drinking alcohol is very good against burning. It has so many little upsides. The more you use this thing, the more you're going to realize just how powerful it is. If you weren't already on board with it. Sneak attack, I guess, can be kind of funny in this fight, but... Oh, and we have another Blackstone. Yeah, we should definitely put one of these in the sidestep. I wasn't really paying attention to that as much as I should have been. I could have Blackstoned this sidestep a while ago with that in mind, although it clearly didn't really matter given how well we've been doing, but that is something to think about. Could have done that from earlier. Okay, so we have the Opportunist very early here, but no one's bleeding yet. Could just do it for Rage, although it would make our combo... Yeah, no, we're not going to play this thing. It just doesn't make sense right now. We'll go Ambush, we'll Purge it, and then Gusher. Probably do this for Rage at this point, seems valuable. And then we can double dip on the Draw Blood. For this fight, you usually want to rush down the Pyre as quickly as possible because these guys get really dangerous when they boost up their Frenzy. You want to make sure you're purging a lot. You want to make sure that you're ending the fight like really quickly. You can try and snipe them off to reduce your burning, but unless you have like some big hit that can just quickly do it right when you need it, it can be a little hard to line things up ahead of time such that that's a particularly relevant play. We could definitely put some vulnerable on here. In fact, you know, I think I will. We're going to get a lot of value out of this vulnerable. In fact, it's going to kill. Good stuff. This is a situation where we might actually stall for a little while to try and get the spell cooldown ready to go again. So why not just kill this guy off, and we can do a little bit of damage to you, I guess, you know. But we're going to wait until the cooldown is at 1, and then we'll be good to go. When you end a combat, that turn does still count for your spell cooldown. So if it says 1, then the spell will be off of cooldown. I put him 1 too high there. Wasn't paying attention closely. But that's fine. We got our healing potion. It's always nice to have at least one of these just in case. That's the first one we've gotten this run. And an upgrade point for probably the In Cold Blood at this point. 5 damage is not huge, but it's definitely something. And this is the kind of card that we're going to want to play very, very often. Almost every time we draw it. So the damage will go a long way. Alright, Unholy Court. This is one of the more dynamic fights in terms of the typical strategy of how you want to clear out enemies, since you're either going to start with King and... The two relevant things, basically, is either you're going to start with King plus Champion, or you're going to start with King plus not Champion, He's always here, of course, right? If the champion is there, you basically have to kill the champion. He's too much of a threat otherwise. If you end up with courtesans and spirits instead, then going straight for the king is a lot more viable. Even if you do get a champion, if your deck has crazy burst damage, you can go for the king first. He's only 80% note, so you will still need to kill one other thing, whereas both the courtesan is 50% and the champion is, I forget exactly what he's worth, but it's 50% or more. So Spirit's the only one that's worth less than half. If you kill the champion, you're probably going to have a courtesan or another champion that you could kill to fill up battle progress. Meanwhile, if you have like this, you could just kill the king and then quickly pick off the courtesan. We're probably going to go for the king if we can just get enough bleed on him. Although actually, now that I look at my hand, I think Dawn Raid is the way we're going to do this turn. This seems better. We don't need block on this turn, so we'll get rid of that. Yeah, we're going to be triggering all sorts of relic effects. This is definitely the way to go. We get the rebound there, and now we can use the clock as well on the draw blood here. And I guess we'll do this. Let you bleed out. Okay, good turn. You know, the other option is just kill everything on turn 1. That's a good play if you can do that too. Okay, so we got our smoke bomb. No keys that were found in those elite fights. So the Gilded Sheath would be explicitly for the smoke bomb. Yeah, I think we just want the Watcher here, probably. Watcher's pretty good. Plays nice with the... Oh, excuse me. Jesus. I tried to mute myself. I couldn't get to the button in time. Yeah, Watcher is good with the drinking alcohol because we have more stuff to purge. If Watcher wasn't here or if we didn't have drinking alcohol, my second choice would probably be the performance enhancers, just because they're so generally useful. But yeah, we'll just buy a Watcher here. I didn't put the smoke bomb in during this fight on purpose because you have this fight's actually really scary. Believe it or not, these guys used to be such a joke until we buffed them up, and now they're terrifying on higher difficulties. They deal a lot of damage, and it comes quick. I don't really want to waste my time trying to buff up against these dudes. I want to be very fast, and this is a very fast hand we have here. Holy cow. This is more energy than purging it, so we'll do that. Actually, I guess we'll do the Gusher in between, then go all the way up, and then Dawn Raid. I could have gotten an extra 50% with Time to Maim. That's my mistake. Definitely going to use the spell here as well. We want Vulnerable. Vulture is pretty much 100% of the time who you want to go for because his Feast on the Flesh thing works where if the enemy to his left attacks, then he triggers it. So very frequently he'll be buffing himself and there's nothing you can do about it. Because, I mean, these guys have a lot of health, right? 122 damage is not that easy to deal. So you have to keep that in mind. Vulture, you want to go after him first. The game is the one that uses the ability to hide sometimes. I know some people say they have like trouble remembering who does what because they all kind of look the same. You can think about it like game is, you know, like a hunter, right? Hunts game animals, and so he hides because he's like hiding from hunters. And the goat is the one that does the sacrifice ability where it can kill itself to buff up the other guys. You know, goats are often used as like an image in like sacrificial rituals and stuff, like satanic rituals and things. That's the way I try to remember it. Vulture is the most distinct. He's got the wings and stuff, you know. So, and he's always in the middle when the fight starts. So you start with Vulture, then if the game is hiding, obviously you just go after the goat. If the goat is going to kill himself, you can try and use that as an opportunity to set up a sync kill. but they offer really weird amounts of progress, right? 40, 40, and 32. Very strange, but you're almost always going to have to deal with some respawns. If you waste too much time trying to set up a sync kill, you're liable to get slapped for a lot of damage. You can get attacked for like 50, 60 damage, and that's nothing unreasonable in this fight. So take them as they come is what I say. Just do your best to end the fight as quickly as possible, but don't waste your time going for sync kills. We're going to go for the game, because even if he wants to hide, it takes his action to do so. So we'd still be able to attack him next turn. And looks like we just have enough damage here. My god. This deck has crazy turn 1 potential if it gets the right cards with the Gusher and the Dawn Raid and stuff. Even though we're mostly kind of supposed to be a bleed deck. Alright, very good. Pretty sure this is our final upgrade point, yeah. So, we do have the Blood Siphon as an extra source of bleed trigger, I guess, but probably don't want that, because it's a little too risky. In the fights in the shorter fights, we won't need it because we have enough burst, and in the longer fights, like versus the Void, removing the bleed is just going to be a complete disaster. We have the balanced in Cold Blood. We're going to be fine. So, no to the Blood Siphon. Sneak attack is kind of funny, but it's not as good as what we're doing, I don't think. So, I will just take the... I'm just going to take the Salt upgrade, make it more efficient. It's a card we're already playing most of the time when we draw it. And we're going to do our Chaos here. For him, it's probably fine to go ahead and throw in the, what's it called? The Smoke Bomb. This fight can be pretty scary too, though. It really depends on what kind of intense you get. Might take out the That'll Sting. I think I will, actually. Let's do the Blackstone Smoke Bomb. In this fight, again, it's another one where you mostly just want to go after the main body. The limbs deal 50% to him, so if you kill both limbs, then the main body dies, and you'll notice it's only like 264 damage in this case for the limbs, compared to 332 for the body. So if you have a deck that can deal effective AoE, it could be good to go after the limbs. Or, you know, if you have, like, I don't know, some kind of huge X-cost card that you could slap onto the arms, maybe it makes sense to go for the arms. Certainly for bleed, though, we definitely just want to stack it all on the body. It's going to be a much more efficient kill, especially with the In Cold Blood. We've drawn Dawn Raid again. But this time we don't have Gusher. Annoyingly as well, we also have Opportunist, but no Bleed It Out. We have one Draw Blood, so we could, like, make the limbs bleed and try and do Opportunist stuff. It's an option. I don't think that's the route we're going down, though. I think it's just going to be Ambush, Dawn Raid, no Opportunist. Watch the Eldritch Blessing here. At this point, this is going to end up dealing quite a bit of damage here. So I think it's better to go for Draw Blood here and not mess around with the time to maim. How much are we up to? Okay, well that's a bug. -6? That's gonna deal -6 bleed trigger damage. Interesting. Okay, let's see. The Watcher's about to be ready to go here. It's still better to do it this way. Yeah, there we go. Good kill. Good kill. Whenever we draw the Dawn Raid on turn 1, we can just kind of go crazy like that. As for these beads, which one do we want? Blue, yellow, red, or purple? Well, we have 2 reds, but we're not actually playing Opportunist very often, and none of these are triggering multiple times, so not great choices here. I guess we'll take the fire bead. Alright, final boss of floor 2. Nothing needing to change here. This guy is usually not that bad. He just buffs himself up like crazy until you kill the steeds, of course, and then if you kill the steeds, he starts swinging every single turn. But by the time you've killed both steeds, you've probably done whatever setup your deck is going to do, and so usually you can clobber him in 1 or 2 turns before he actually deals very much damage. We've opened with the Dawn Raid Ambush again. We used to just open with Bleed It Out every fight. Now we open with Dawn Raid every fight, huh? Not complaining. Try and make good use of the Blessing here. See just how much we can do. Okay, and we're getting another one back, so we'll do another Draw Blood here. So if we play this, how much is it dealing? A lot. Yeah, I guess we can put the bleed on you. We'll do this. Put the bleed on you. Purge this. I could spend the combo here, but then I won't be able to get it back, so that's a bad idea. Yeah, he's not going to have much time to get buffed up at this rate. Is it already too late for Smoke Bomb? Probably not. Not like we have much to do on this turn anyway, really. You know, like, I guess we can Gusher. But it's not even that good. I'd rather save it for when we're dealing with the actual boss. So we'll just go for a simple Bloody Hell play there. Get the Smoke Bomb going. The name of the game right now is just to draw through our deck as rapidly as possible and get the in Cold Bloods. Yeah, we're definitely not playing the Opportunist now, but we probably do want to play Salt and discard the Light It Up. Keeping an eye on the Eldritch Blessing and the Light Clockwork. We'll go for the raw damage. Blessing's ready, so now we'll do Draw Blood. Clock's ready, so we'll do Draw Blood again. Blessing again. And the clock kind of going to waste a little bit here, but it's fine. We're putting way more bleed on him than is necessary for a 2-turn kill because there's pretty decent odds that we actually kill him just with regular damage here on this next turn, and the bleed never triggers. So we just want to deal as much as we can. Yeah, that's definitely going to be what happens here. So we don't need you. We'll play the Gusher for maximum energy efficiency, play the Dawn Raid for the Rage. And now it's not going to take much to wipe this guy out. Blessing ready, so this is a Draw Blood opportunity. Draw Blood just 1 damage shy here. Bit of a shame. So we'll have to use a Hidden Blade, that's fine. We need to make sure we have enough energy that with a discount we can still play the In Cold Blood. We want to stack as much bleed as possible on him, so we'll try to use our rebound effects on the stuff that gives us bleed. We'll actually do... Yeah, we'll do the Draw Blood, because we can purge it. And then the blessing's ready. We can do this one. The clock is ready. At this point, I think it's just best for a hidden blade. Yeah, I mean, I'm overthinking this. It is an over-explain run, but there's a point when you should just play everything and win. Alright. That's floor 2 cleared. We have our Well of Stars. No reason not to buy this, because it's all upside and we have nothing else to afford. Upgrade points, max health, booster pack. Definitely don't feel like we need a booster pack. The deck's really solid. Although I wouldn't hate a bit of extra like block, I guess. 25 max life kind of accomplishes the same thing. Meanwhile, 2 upgrade points would also sort of accomplish the same thing because we could upgrade our block. The evades get higher base damage and higher scaling block. Not damage, block. But this isn't going to be super useful against the single target guardians or against the void itself, of course. I guess we'll just take the booster pack. Try and find specific good defensive cards. We do have a reroll, of course. And, you know, it's fun to open card packs, right? A second Gusher? That's ridiculous. It's not actually that bad, though, is the thing to consider. Because it's an Expel card. And any card that says Expel is potentially worthwhile once you have a deck like this. Well, okay, this is all of my cards. But once you have a deck that centralizes around a particular card, anything that expels just makes your deck smaller, and therefore you draw that one card more reliably. So this is going to be really good against Vault Guardians, and it's actually, surprisingly, pretty good against the Void, too. So I'm fine keeping this. Leading Edge is not that bad. It's probably not going to come in. It might. But the Slice and Twain definitely won't. We already have one we're not using. And again, I want to reroll the higher rarity cards. So show me a Dueling Buckler, maybe, huh? No. Imprint. That's interesting. Alright, before we take on Guardians or make decisions, real quick bathroom break for me. I will be right back. Okay, so here we are on floor 3. We'll go ahead and release our souls. You don't actually gain souls from fighting the Vault Guardians, so there's no reason not to just do this right away. You can actually fight the Void without releasing the souls once you've cleared the number of Guardians necessary. So probably a good habit just to click on that before you ever fight the Void, so you don't forget. We can assess at this point which blessings we want most. This is something that depends heavily on exactly what kind of deck you've built and what sort of artifacts you found. So that's why it's usually not all that important to make a huge note of this earlier in the run. So here we have one less Frenzy on the Void. That would be good if we were confident in our damage output, but worried about the fact that we might just get killed before we were able to deal said damage. Overcharge 1 and increase your max energy by 1. That's obviously good if you have expensive stuff that you want to play or if you're having problems with energy. This one is kind of not useful almost all of the time, I'm just going to say. I have literally never taken this and had it been like crazy. Usually it does not heal you for anything, or it heals you, but it doesn't matter because you were already going to win, or it heals you, but it didn't matter because you were already going to lose. Yeah, this one's not that good. Stealth and full energy, that's really good if you want a turn to set up, or if you're a deck that is really exceptionally bad at dealing with the garbage cards. We're not necessarily super bad at dealing with the garbage cards, but we would really appreciate not having to deal with them. So I'm tempted by this one. And one less frenzy, that seems fine. Our defenses are the weaker half of our deck, I would say. We still have all of these unupgraded evades, because we just never found anything better than them. So I think the plan will be to fight the Star Council, who we should do reasonably well against, and the Puppet Master. So the Star Council, of course, you might be a little surprised that I say we should do reasonably well against these guys, because you can only target them with 2 attacks per turn, right? Which is bad, but we don't need to target one guy with that many attacks, because we can spread out the attacks here and there, and then once it's time to get the kills with cold blood, we can just pick them off using this once or twice with the Butcher's Blade, and then cycle back around to it again for the other guys. I think it'll work just fine. We also have the Bloody Hell, which is not an attack that gives us quite a bit of bleed. We have the Purge effect on the Bleeded Out to put more bleed on them without dealing damage, or without targeting with attacks, rather. The Smoke Bomb is not going to be all that useful, but it's there. This was going to be a slower fight in all likelihood anyway, rather than just crazy Dawn Raid stuff, so... Also, at this point, it's worth thinking about how we're going to use our potions. During the Void fight specifically, I want to brew the Draw Potion. So that means that all the other potions can basically be used freely. The Health Potion will only be used if necessary, which means I have an Energy Potion and a Strength Potion. We're doing 2 fights, of course, so I could brew 1 per Guardian fight, and I could just leave the Exploding Bottle as my, like, oh crap button. In which case, maybe the Strength Potion would be better here, because this will allow us to deal more damage with the 2 attack targeting that we get per enemy. We did draw the Dawn Raid. These guys make you discard your hand at the end of the turn. So again, it is kind of important that we end with a reasonable amount of energy. So we're going to try to keep it at 3 out of 5. And we'll just spread the damage around here. One thing to note as well in this fight is they won't take bleed damage while they're immune. So if you want them to take damage from bleed, it's important that you only target them with 1 attack. Again, though, I don't think that's... Obviously, it's not relevant now while they only have a measly 4 bleed, but even later it probably won't matter because the in-cold blood is what's in all likelihood going to be doing the killing. Like I said, we want to have a lot of energy here, so we'll pass. We kind of have a 25 health point cushion as well, since I have that health potion just hanging around. Okay, the Haunted here is definitely annoying. 2 stacks. It's actually very difficult to get rid of all of that in a useful way so that I could get back my sidestep. So I don't think we're going to bother with that, really. We'll just play the block cards that we have here that are good. And get Rage. Yeah, 6 damage is totally fine. Go for the guy who has the lowest health, or we could go for the guy who's buffing. I guess we'll go for the buff guy in this case. And now that he has a decent-ish amount of bleed, Yeah, he's just gonna go down pretty easily here. Because we can just hang on to this for next turn. Or actually, no, we can't hang on to this for next turn. That's not how that works. I was just talking about that. Such an easy ability to forget. 24 is better than 15. Don't mind taking 6 here. You can see that we are cycling through the deck pretty rapidly. That was only turn 2. And we don't have almost anything that actually draws us cards. In fact, I think we have literally nothing, right? And nothing in our deck. It's all just the drinking alcohol. Plus the fact that we play a couple expel cards. Still just don't think the bleed damage is actually all that relevant right now. Raw damage is probably better. 17 next turn isn't really all that bad either. Okay, so we can just use the one evade. Oh wait, no, we're haunted. Yeah, we need both evades. The Opportunist is a lot of damage. With Rage even, yeah, it's not quite enough. If we could unhaunt ourselves, it might be. But 3 haunted, it's just not happening. Note that when you're haunted and you have a card that triggers multiple times, in this case, Opportunist is going to trigger 4 times, right? Once from the fact that it is being played, and 3 more times for combo. The first 3 triggers of the Voidstone would be stopped, but the 4th one would actually go through. If this had a Blackstone too, that would be really relevant. Blackstone say inert, right? But that means the Voidstone only triggers 1 time. But since the first couple of triggers would be blocked, if we had a Blackstone in this Opportunist and we played it right now with 3 haunted, we would get rid of all of the haunted and get back an extra copy, as if we weren't even haunted in the first place. Pretty cool option. Of course, that's not a Blackstone in this case, but you know, just something to something to mention. You're just buffing yourself, so I don't even really care that I can't kill you this turn. Should probably go for damage. Yeah, and then next turn, don't need to worry about you. We'll put some bleed on you and we'll weaken you. Why not? Fight's probably going to last long enough for the spell to come off cooldown. I'm ending with lower energy than usual, so this way I can have just a bit less damage to worry about, and he's the only one that's attacking. The vulnerable probably doesn't matter one way or the other. We're always going to have to play 2 block cards here. I don't think we want to Dawn Raid. So the In Cold Blood just clobbers you. Guess we'll go ahead and do that now. Now we can actually get it back again. Oh, we were haunted. I just spent all my combo. But it's fine. I mean, look how close to dead he is. We'll let the bleed finish you off. I don't know. This is honestly as good a reason as any to use the potion. At this point in the run, the deck is really strong. We have a lot of resources. You can kind of play it fast and loose a bit. We don't need to be as methodical. Probably want to go for a bloody hell here. We're gonna block with tower shield, I guess. You know what, actually, the bloody hell's not even that good. Since we can spend our combo now, the light it up is probably better. Now this turn we either just deal 35 damage or block 17, and either way we're fine. And there we go. So that's first one down. Next we're going to do Puppet Master. This guy is going to put all of the Banes in our decks, which is a little concerning because, again, we have no draw discard, but we can put the Snuff Out back in for the time being as a way to handle that. Yeah, we can replace a Draw Blood with Snuff Out, and we'll replace one of our Evades with Thinning Out. And I guess I should probably also make this change. It's usually better. Imprint is probably not relevant. The best things to be imprinting. We're already getting one extra copy of them anyway with Butcher's Blade. We're not going to be able to play that many in Cold Bloods. It's too expensive. And I don't really want to have to deal with the opener of Leading Edge. I'd rather just have the cheaper Draw Blood anyway, so that it can be free when we have the Blessing lined up. And if we get a rebound, we can purge it to make it pay for itself, in which case it's basically free. So we'll use this deck. Oh yeah, the potions. I didn't put a potion. I guess in this case I would have brewed, or I would have belted the health potion, is what we would have done. But, you know, it really doesn't matter. 6 health is not going to make the difference here. So this only takes from the deck. Everything's in the discard pile right now. So we're just going to be purging this. Get back around to it later. 17 is not very much, and we can delay block for 5. We still have a couple of block cards. Probably a good idea to hold one of these things. So I guess I'll hold the Time to Maim in that case. Yeah, we'll just hold the Time to Maim. It's one less block. You know, the whole energy efficiency thing, right? We could have held both, but I just want to draw deeper. I value that more than energy, being able to get to my my In Cold Blood and my Gushers. We'll just go ahead and double sidestep here. Get the smoke bombs. And we definitely want to Cold Blood him this turn. The Salt in the Wound is actually really good with the Cold Blood here. We can get rid of that. This is the unupgraded Gusher, so it's not very useful. We'll get rid of it. Next attack comes back. And we can even get the extra Rage now. And then save this for next turn. There's no point in getting the Rage there, of course, since the cost went down, the Eldritch Blessing. But it's all good. He's super duper dead. Yeah, there comes a point where you're just strong enough that you don't even really need to think about that kind of stuff. Okay, Void Fight time. We're definitely going to brew the drop potion, like we said. Having random boost of energy right when we need it could be helpful. Yeah, nothing else to change. We definitely want to have the on-demand vulnerable for the big bleed trigger turns. Let's get into the final fight here. Alright, we opened with the smoke bomb. That is very convenient. We still have the thinning out and the sifting card, which is fine because we're going to get some garbage from these guys almost certainly. We do have stealth. We want to get the opener here. And this guy's not useful yet. Annoyingly, we don't actually have much in terms of ways to trigger bleed here, so we're going to have to do bloody hell into salt. So I think we're not going to Dawn Raid, that's for sure. We want to bloody hell for 2 here. I don't think we're going to be able to kill this guy before he gets the exhaustion, so we'll go for Void Touched on the left here. This sets up the Eldritch Blessing. Now we can purge the Time to Maim, get the salt. There we go. Okay, and here's the In Cold Blood. So instantly we can kill her, which is really good, of course. The Gusher we probably want to do first, so let's try and set that up. Like this. We'll In Cold Blood you, get the In Cold Blood back. And then we're going to try to get extra triggers on the stuff that gives us bleed. Like this. Just waiting until we can use the light clockworks. And that should be all of the triggers of that. I guess I have Snuff Out as well. It's not quite a kill here before he adds the garbage. And now it is. Okay, so I was wrong. We actually totally were able to kill both of them with the stealth before we got garbage cards in the deck. So we're on an excellent pace here to defeat the Void. Okay, this hand is horrible. We drew all of our block cards, basically. That is unfortunate. But it happens. The clock is up, so we can at least do a couple of draw bloods here. And we could hold stuff, but we have a huge cushion of health, and I just want to see my In Cold Blood. So we're purging everything down. We're going to save the spell for the In Cold Blood turn. We've got bonus energy as well if we need it, and we might well because we have Dawn Raid here. So we're definitely going to start with Dawn Raid. And I think we can purge the Bleed It Out, probably. Yeah, we're going to purge that. The Gusher would be the only thing we could get with Snuff Out. We can draw first with Salt in the Wound. Now we have 0 cards in deck. We can get rid of this useless Light It Up. Now the Snuff Out can get anything, but it would just be a Bane to get rid of that, or it would just be like the Tower Shield. So 1 mana for 2 Silent Shivs. Not great. Maybe we can get like an Eldritch Blessing instead. 0 mana for 2 Silent Shivs. That's pretty good. So we'll do that now. Yeah, we'll send the Tower Shield. We want aggressive stuff right now. And again, just keeping an eye on these relics. We're going to try to get as much bleed as possible. The unupgraded Gusher is just not happening. Okay, so something's going to come back now, but we don't have any attacks that give us more bleeding. Okay. Yeah, so at this point we'll just start throwing in the damage, the raw damage. Okay, and this is at 4, which means we can go in cold blood, crack the energy potion, in cold blood, and then it would come back again from the clockwork. And there we go. A slam dunk turn 4 victory there. Almost all perfect fights too. Just the last 2 elites we fought, and one of the guardians we took a tiny bit. There we are. We clocked in at 3 hours, so about an hour slower than a normal Impossible plus 50 run that I do. Hopefully that means I was taking more time to explain things. We talked about a lot of general stuff like pathing and planning upgrades and things. Talked about specific strategies for fights. I think I covered everything that I wanted to in general.